Alright, time for Fullest House, first edition, where we are playing Vaettiheim. It is turn 45. We are storming in Abyssia. One thing I forgot to mention is last turn it was cold 1 in Abyssia. We've been doing some preaching, and so we don't quite have our Dominion in there, but we're finally starting to, choke out the Smolder Cone. So we finished researching Conjuration 5. This does mean we get access to full-sized elementals, which is nice. And then we're headed for Conjuration 6, mainly for Great Eagles, but there's some other useful spells there. Bringing in just some of our Blood Chaff, and then also making our Lesser Horror attacks. So let's take a look at that. We have one against Pangea and one against Patala. This is going to hit the rating group, right? Because Magic Phase happens before normal phase movement, so we're guaranteed to hit this rating group, right? They can't escape us. One of the advantages of Magic Phase attacks, and we got probably a pretty good roll. These Horror Mantises are pretty gosh darn nasty. They have good skills, decent amount of hit points, a lot of protection, Fear Aura, a ton of attacks, all of which deal magic damage and are fairly damaging. There's only 2 of them, so I don't think that we're going to completely kill this raiding party. Dang. I thought these Mantises would do a little better. There's some possibility that the Fear Aura, right, will cause routes. So this does work out for us, but it certainly could have gone the other way, right? That was a very close run thing. I do think Pangea may have 1 or 2 retreat routes, but this is probably the end of that raiding group, so very happy about that. And anytime you have the option for Magic Phase attacks, a very useful thing. This is another reason that stealthy raiders are such a hassle and so sought after, because they can dodge they can dodge remote attack spells like that, Magic Phase attacks. In this case, we just got 1 Float Cat Horror. Not that Float Cats are bad, they just only one of them, but there's nothing here really, so we should come away with this. I do think they have a Mind Blast, maybe? What are you doing here, Float Cat? Really struggling against 1 caveman, but they do have a life drain, and they probably have fear as well. Yeah, a lot of horrors have fear, so perhaps a little closer. What are we doing? He's got a chest wound. He doesn't move very fast. Wow, combat speed is normally 4, which is incredibly low, but it looks like this guy has magic power. Yeah, and so this must be drain scales. So wow, he almost died. So there you go, Float Cat Horror, almost killed by sticks and stones, but this guy, he loses his nerve at the last second, and this does work out for us, although there's a pretty good chance we're going to lose that province to Gath. And then our site searching, not going so great. It is the late age. Blood hunting going a bit better, so we like to see that. So this is one of the reasons that late age blood is kind of considered, I don't know about better, but it's just there's more population and there's fewer gems, so it's kind of easier to blood hunt, although I do believe the rate at which you find blood slaves is also reduced in the late age, so it somewhat matches the fewer number of gem sites that are available. So this is our normal attack against Patala, and they just left a little bit of province defense, and that raiding group moved out. So we're definitely going to come away with this, hopefully without loss. Yep, we do. Of course, this is a ton of commitment. Again, we're coming to finish this thing, although we will probably wait a few turns to bring up the rest of our army, so that that's not going to be enough to take Patala's capital. And then Marignon's Pretender continuing to move around, no doubt also trying to catch raiders. This is a little on the dangerous side. There's a lot of Bakamono province defense, but it is nice she gets these snakes that she summons in every time, or that they summon in every time. So they're not going to get their script, interrupted in all likelihood, and they are going to have, I don't know. It depends on how long the script is. I do think these snakes are going to disappear pretty quickly. Yeah. So, and we'll see, but it looks like, I don't know, 20 protection. They do have Temper Flesh on, so that helps a lot. And they have a lot of hit points and regeneration and fear, although I do think that this is a situation where the Vine Shield was absolutely clutch. If they hadn't had the Vine Shield, then there's a good chance it would have taken at least a lot of afflictions. But still, that works out pretty well, and a decent use of a Pretender, I would say. Although it does kind of seem like they've kitted him out to kind of be anti-chaff. I was thinking that they were trying to catch maybe one of Falegra's super combatants, but perhaps that's not the case. Or perhaps they just feel that equipment will work pretty well against the super combatants that Falegra is rocking. And then here we have Joman, and I think this is a mercenary group here. If not, then perhaps they have gone up high up Conjuration and gotten one of the Air Queens and done quite a bit of summoning. And right, they are attacking Raga. This is where we figured that this army was going. And like, yeah, potentially a lot of mercenaries, because this also looks like a mercenary group up front here. So like mostly mercenaries, supported, by like some pretty serious casters. And yeah, these ladies are pretty dangerous. But they do tend to melt a bit, right? No protection, so it can help a lot if you can get protection buffs on them. Doesn't look like that's the case here, but not really necessary against fairly heavy amount of province defense, actually. And interesting, that was actually in Mictlan, so this is probably a fort that they're sitting on top of, and a very valuable fort. And yeah, I do think these sylphs are from the mercenary group, because there's a Windmaster here, which is not normally a mage that Jomon gets, although you can get them from events, and I think a site. But yeah, it seems like a solid army, perhaps a little light on siege strength. Mictlan might not be a citadel, so it'd be a little bit easier to break down, although then again it might be a citadel because it is the late age. And then yeah, it looks like we have a bump possibly, or no, yeah. So Gath is attacking Patala here. This is with their raiding force. I feel like there was more, wasn't there 5? And then they, yeah. So it looks like we are also, oh no, I think our attack is a scout, and this is a mistake, probably. So we know that this doesn't work out. And so, do these ladies... Yeah, they have poison resistance, at least. Do all of them have poison resistance? Yeah, it looks like... Well, oops, that's one of Patala's. Yeah, they all have poison resistance, so it's unlikely that it's the poison that gets them. But do these ladies have magic weapons? No, it looks like they actually don't, although they do have flaming weapons. Then again, these, yeah, probably have some fire resistance and some protection as well, and some regeneration, but it looks like it's just, pure numbers, and when these Patalan Sacreds deal damage, they do deal, well, not a lot of damage, but enough at least to cut through a lot of their protection. You can also see that these thugs are getting paralyzed periodically when they turn gray like that, or hypnotized, I think just does paralyzation. Kind of surprised that this didn't work out for Gath. Maybe just a morale failure at some point, because it's definitely looking like they're going to come away with it. The regeneration being pretty critical here, even though it's a relatively low HP pool. Since they're only getting chip damage against them, they're able to regenerate it back, and it's totally fine. So yeah, it does look like Gath comes away with this. I must have misread that battle report. It says Gath attacked Patala, but was defeated. Okay, so I rewatched the battle, and a few of Patala's units got hung up, and it looks like, I guess, the thugs just aren't quite killing enough to get rid of these last moss-bodied commanders. So I'm assuming that this battle is going to time out, although it does seem like it's a long way from timing out, so I'll go ahead and cut again to the... Oh, okay. Oh, so looks like maybe Holy Word or Holy Avenger got one or two of the thugs. They don't have great magic resistance. Well, of course, this is the one that has the Amulet of Anti-Magic. I'm pretty sure the other ones didn't, and so we're significantly lower. So yeah, I'll cut to later, so you don't have to watch this thrilling battle. Yep, so here we are at turn 90, and like there was just one commander that just couldn't make it off the field because she got wrapped by Vine Shield and just never broke out of it. Yeah, and of course, like, yeah, so she was weakened, so her strength was lowered, which was going to make it harder for her to get out of that vine effect. But she did have really high protection, and I guess, like, the right resistances to deal with whatever weapon that thug was rocking, and so, like, yeah, like 1 hit point. And then once you hit turn 90, the attacker routs, and that's Gath. So I was thinking that this was a replay bug, because I was like, there's no way that, Patala could have come away with this. But there you have it, just the weirdness of Dominions. So, like, yeah, I think our scout now is going to attack because this was a place that I was thinking about hitting with a horror attack. Maybe we did. Where did we hit with a horror attack? I'll have to go check. So anyway, we hit with a scout, but this is a mistake, and he's definitely not going to be able to take out... Well, they only have 1 hit point. If he's fast enough and gets lucky enough, yeah, but now it's too late. So this is not going to work out for us. And so yeah, our scout fails. So this was just a mistake on my part. I was thinking that this was going to be a place that we attacked with the horrors. Where did we? We did attack here with the horrors. So Battala must have moved their raiding force or army, whatever you want to call it, into this province. So we took this province from minimal Batalan PD. Battala recaptured it from no province defense because the horrors don't invest in province defense for you. Then Gath tried to take it in the normal phase from Battala, but failed. And then our scout showed up to try to take an empty province, but it wasn't empty anymore and failed. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's what just went down. So here's Gath attacking this. So he split his thug group. So I think there was, it looks like 6 thugs actually. I was thinking there was just 5. And like, yeah, there's just a little bit of province defense here. This will cut us off from Patala's capital. So we'll see. We'll wait until Battala like recaptures, or assuming that they're able to recapture it. They may decide not to, right? Because this is the province that we agreed to give Gath, and I am going to operate under the assumption that we have a non-aggression pact. So I'm not going to be attacking them just yet, not directly, but yeah, we may end it sooner rather than later. We'll see. Depends on how much progress Gath has made up in the north against Raga. I don't love making and then kind of more or less immediately canceling non-aggression pacts. I think that rightly annoys people and makes it less likely that they're going to sign in the future. But like I said, I feel like leaving Battala this long and then turning your attention to Raga, and it's essentially going to block off our progress against Raga, kind of limits our options. So in this case, I am totally okay with it, but we'll see how it plays out. And then of course, this is the big deal. This is our assault. So, and yeah, there's more Centaur Sages in here than I was hoping. Of course, that's usually how it goes. We do have a Pan. There's going to be some Howl in all likelihood. And he's got plenty of these super nasty troops, but we are hoping that Rigor Mortis will do the trick, and the wall defenders with their crossbows is going to be a bit of a problem. I would say luckily it's in the dark, so their precision is lower, but it's it kind of doesn't matter anyway. And so we've seen our army. Unfortunately, I attacked with our siege strength as well. That was a bit of a mistake, but it is what it is. It won't hurt to have the extra help. And then our bugs go in. Actually, we should definitely turn on team colored squares because they have bugs as well. So it's just going to be a lot of bugs happening. Hopefully we're going to see Rigor Mortis go up relatively soon, assuming that our communion has not failed. Okay, so this is looking promising. It is a fairly slow cast of Rigor Mortis, right? Because we had to do reinvigoration first. Sabbath Master is an expensive way from a fatigue standpoint to get into a communion. It costs 100 fatigue, and since we're only blood 1, that's not cut down at all. So I felt that we had to do reinvigoration first before trying to cast a really fatigue-intensive spell like Rigor Mortis. And then, of course, there comes the Howl. This is going to be ugly. Luckily, they don't have a lot of priests, although they do have these Astral Mages. Well, excuse me, these Astral Mages, there are some Astral spells that can be pretty nasty against the undead, so we wouldn't love that, but luckily they're already mostly fatigued out from their casting, and then now, because we have Rigor Mortis up, they're never going to wake up, and so, while this is going to be a bit ugly and painful at the start, I do think this is going to work out for us pretty well. Yeah, there it is. I think it's Solar Rays, so we really don't want to see those Solar Rays, and of course our Rimvedi are going to be in a much better position because it's, I think, Cold 1. Yeah, so the cold scales, Cold 1, much better than the last fight that we took here, although we can see that, they're starting to fall asleep pretty quickly. Rigor Mortis is not going to be great for them, and unfortunately they might block the gap here a bit. So this isn't going to be the cleanest win, definitely, but I do think we're going to come away with it without too many losses. Eventually, once you go really, really high on fatigue, you will start taking damage, so there is some danger that we will lose some of our living units to Rigor Mortis if we aren't fast enough with this battle. And of course, the gap, having the Long Dead Horseman hold and then attack rear, possibly a mistake. I don't know if we could have gotten in quickly enough. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. And actually, there is definitely a chance, if we're not killy enough, oof, we might retreat from this because we might just time out the battle because these guys actually can't retreat. That said, we do have new imps coming in, so like that's pretty helpful because even as the old imps fall asleep, right, we have 2 lifelong protections that are just spamming out imps. So the old imps fall asleep and then the new imps show up and like they'll start to kill guys. They're going to kill guys relatively slowly, so like yeah, we only have 40 more turns to close this out. And of course like the wolves are going to keep coming in. And like yeah, and now of course we have some imps that have fallen asleep, but we do have some skeletons that are filtering around. Come on guys, you can do this. Oh man, this is yeah, so using rigor mortis like this, especially in an assault, isn't ideal. There's definitely like some danger here. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of danger here, and like we would really not like a retreat. That would suck. But yeah, we do have a couple random skeletons back here getting kills. Come on guys, you can do it. So many sleeping imps, so many sleeping things. So I mean, you know, even if we bounce here, we will be able to take it next turn. Gosh, I don't even know if I left anything sitting on top of the fort. That would be really sad if we had to recrack. Yep, here comes the rout. 4 rounds. Oh, we were so close. We were so close. So yeah, armies of Pangea are routed, armies of Vaettiheim are routed. So our mages are going to retreat off, those that are awake actually. So we're going to have a bunch of units die. Oh, this is going to be really ugly actually. Because eventually like everybody who's still asleep, well, we'll see. We're going to have some units wake up. Yeah, so I haven't used rigor mortis in an attack like this very often, and you can see how like combining with living units was a big mistake. So our rigor mortis caster made it off, which is good, but a lot of these units are not gonna. They're gonna start to wake up, right? Because there's no more rigor mortis, and then we could still theoretically win this because yeah, Pangea's units are gonna wake up and rout off. But then things are going to start just getting killed, and I don't know exactly when that happens. We're coming up on it, and of course it's always like some cripple. Yep, crippled that causes problems. Hopefully we have like, yeah, this is probably like a crippled mannequin, or no, actually the mannequins are just going to disappear as their leadership goes away. So we managed to grab some wolf who has fallen asleep, so that's good. That sleeping wolf might net us this win, but we are going to lose units in the retreat, absolutely, and we'll have to reform the army, so that's really annoying. Luckily, I think we control, well, there's some areas that are under other people's control, but we have quite a few of the surrounding provinces, so I'm not sure if we even managed to get the win there. There we go, we did. But definitely not the cleanest battle ever. Not my most genius plan. So we lose all the long dead horsemen, all of our pre-summoned long dead. Like, yeah, this is 40 death gems. We also lose like all the mannequins. So yeah, we lose basically the entirety of our chaff. Luckily, we don't lose too many Rimvetti and we don't lose too many berserkers. Mage losses are actually significant, but not horrendous. A lot of what we lose are the Vetti hags, who are probably part of the communion, which we burned out. Which is not great. So, you know, this is not great, but it's also not catastrophic. Like, we'll see what we lose in the retreat. And then, of course, we do at least knock out everything that Pangea has. Probably would have been better off just not even bringing the living units, I think. Definitely should have had the long dead horsemen just go in straight away. So let's see how much we lose. There's going to be a lot of retreats. But yeah, it looks like we don't lose at least any commanders in the retreat, although we may have lost some units because I feel like I don't have a scroll bar, but it kind of feels like I should. So, you know, there could be some other retreats where we do lose some stuff, but I think by and large, it's not going to be too painful as far as retreat losses go. So yeah, a rough end to a bit of a rough war. That's how it goes sometimes. Of course, Pangea is not out. They still have their actual capital, but that was their last army and probably about half of their remaining mages, and you know, so they don't have too much left. And then we have some unexpected events. So yeah, losing some province income, as happens, losing a bit of tax this turn. Hey, this is a nice one. We must not have our scales in this province yet. And then a worldwide event has occurred. Someone defeated the necromancer. That's probably a good thing. Good work, whoever did that. And then we finished some fort construction. I think, yeah, this is on top of the throne, which is good. Now we can get those air mages more quickly. And then this is on top of the steel ovens. And this is really just mostly because we are going to stack a decent number of valuable mages there. So I feel like it's probably worth a fort. And then the patrolling always going, and then it looks like we missed the final battle of Atlantis and Satis, and Atlantis is permanently vanquished. So definitely should reach out to Satis and see, what kind of interest they have in going in against Pythium, and I will catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Probably the biggest news of the turn is we are going to be launching our raiding attacks against Raga. Now that we've finished off this situation in Abyssia, and I'm much less worried about whatever else Pangaea might have, right? We know they don't have a ton left. I feel like secure enough that we can afford to start messing with Raga. Also, Raga's getting hit by a lot of people, right? So, we are one of the last knives to be going in. Nothing particularly honorable or glorious about this, but we are playing the goblins, so we don't mind that. And yeah, we're going to hit, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-ish provinces, maybe 6. I think one of the horrors is going at one of these provinces as well. So 6 provinces to start with, not bad. This is mostly triggered, right? We can see that Gath has pushed into this province, so it looks like they might be going for more of a Doomstack style approach, because it's very slow for a raiding attack. So we're going to try to intercept that with our scout, so we can take a look at what they're rocking. They might also jump on top of Archocephaly, which we will hopefully also catch. But if our raiding works out, then we'll at least maintain access to the throne and to Raga's actual capital without having to trigger a war with Gath. Which, of course, since we probably mostly have a non-aggression pact, we'll need a few turns before that actually triggers. And this is, again, partially motivated by the fact that we just captured Abyssia, so our position is a lot more secure, even though that battle didn't go great for us. And we can see, there's no scrolling of the mage list anymore, although, we did have some retreats out to various provinces. So, as Pyrrhic victories go, it wasn't a Pyrrhic victory, but a bit rough. So we definitely need a turn to reorganize this army. Most of it is not moving out, but the other thing is it is looking like Gath is also going to tighten the screws on Patala. Now that said, Patala does have a good amount of stuff in here, but these thugs are significantly more investment, and we may not be able to access Patala's capital that readily. We can cross this river currently, but that is only because it is winter. This is all still under Patala's dominion, which I'm almost positive is heat dominion, because I believe they're cold-blooded. So once this turns to spring, this river will unfreeze again. So we will probably not really be able to attack Patala, which means that we're going to have a little more leeway, and we don't want to get blocked off from attacking Raga as well. Now that still leaves us movement in the north, and we're sending one of our horror castings against Pangaea's capital, and then we're going to move our thug, is not the mage that we're trying to get killed. We're going to move them on top of this fort. And there's a pretty good chance they'll die, either to, whatever Pangaea is patrolling with or moving out with. And we also see there's, a decent amount of stuff here from Pythium, although most of it is just sort of, siege garbage. And there really isn't much, if any, mage support here, at least that we can see. So this may not jump back on top of the capital. We'll see. But, there's a good chance that this caster will die, which is what we want. And, if they don't, they'll at least lock down Pangaea's capital. And of course, the other option we have for future wars is to go against Pythium. And that's probably the most interesting, thing that our scouting picked up. So I said that we missed the final battle for Satis and Atlantis, but that's not true. So Atlantis was actually dom killed, and we can see a stack of priests here. And so, Satis just, chose to preach this down. I think that's significantly easier against the AI, I'm guessing, and Atlantis had gone AI. But they also managed to steal a march on us with their army, so I'm assuming that their army went here and is probably already on its way to attack Pythium. I still have not talked with Satis. Thought I had a little more time, but this is really cool stuff. And even if they aren't going after Pythium, wherever they sent their army, it's moving to a useful location. Although I do think they'll need to bring some siege strength in to actually break the fort, right? Because this fort is uncracked. And while all the units disappear inside, like I think you still have to get through the wall integrity of the fort. So like I don't think these priests, I mean maybe eventually they'll be able to breach the walls, but it'll take a while. And you know that's a decent amount of gem income and gold income that you're losing. So there is something to be said to take the fort quickly, you know, rather than moving your army out. But, you know, then again, maybe they have pressing concerns. I'm not sure what those are at the moment because we haven't seen a ton of movement on the borders that we have eyes on for Satis. There's a decent amount of long dead on our border. Not totally sure what these guys are up to, but, you know, we're mostly forted up. The garrison over here, not great, but in theory, right, we have a non-aggression pact with both these neighbors, so I'm sure everything is secure and fine. But even though it's unlikely that we're going to be able to, I don't know about unlikely, because there's a good chance Patala's raided this province many, many times. So all we need to do is get our army in position. Then when Patala raids it, we move in, and then we jump onto the capital immediately. So that we can actually do that, we have, you know, more or less formed up this army. It's, you know, it's not fantastic. It's basically just some skelly spammers on the flank with some berserkers out front and some crossbowmen, siege chaff in the back. You know, like a couple, I think the quickness caster. We got some poison ward for our mundane troops. And then I forgot to move this commander back to a protected position. So he's going to be leading the charge, at least for this next turn. But that's roughly what this army is going to be looking like. The other major component, of course, we have seen in action, which is all these mages with their various, like, you know, more skeletons, some point buffing. You know, we'll rejigger this to actually fit it into that army. But yeah, those two things together combined will, you know, more or less form the force that we'll be attacking Patala with. We'll see how that goes. We are planning on bringing in some eagles once we can summon those, which, yeah, should be next turn. Yeah, next turn we'll be able to start summoning eagles in. And that will form the siege strength component of that army. And then, of course, you know, if Gath does actually lock down Patala's capital, and even if they don't, we do want to get a fort started here, and that's going to be the other thing that our army, you know, is going to hang out and protect that, either by sitting on top of Patala or just sitting here while the construction finishes. So that more or less covers, you know, kind of what we're doing in our southwest. We're not really recruiting any more troops down here. We are still trying to recruit mages, although I think we're recruiting quite a few, goads this turn, because we are still trying to recruit some troops up here in the north. And then, of course, like that's the other thing that we're doing. Well, we are recruiting some replacements in Abyssia. Also, this is apparently a Zots province, and yeah, I'm going to try to recruit a couple Kamazots. I think, yeah, this is only 10%, which I didn't realize. The Air Death Cross Path would be pretty nice, as well as Death Earth. We, you know, in theory, the witches will give that to us. But yeah, mostly I think these guys are just going to come out as death mages, so probably will halt recruitment next turn. I don't think we actually need to build up a stack of Kamazots. But we'll see. People do really like those mages, and I haven't ever really used them that much, so yeah, I don't know. We might recruit a couple just to try them out. But I think a lot of their advantages, like we kind of already have better national alternatives. But anyway, we are moving out our other army, which like is even less organized than the other one. Yeah, I'm really trying to get away from this, but was a little bit in a rush. It's always dangerous, in my opinion, when you move forces out that like aren't really scripted, because you never know when they're going to get jumped on, or even just when independence, right? I mean, we are running Misfortune 3, so who knows what might be attacking them. But yeah, this is like roughly what we're going to have, combined with like the various kind of heavy raiding groups that we have up here. So also, like, yeah, a little on the wonky side, still somewhat focused on like skeleton production and point buffing, which is just, it's requiring a ton of mages. But especially against Pythium, like Foul Vapor is not really going to be so useful, and I think kind of demonstrated that we're not quite ready for Rigor Mortis to be the centerpiece of our armies. Like, we don't quite have the appropriate composition yet. Though I do think that that play will be less dangerous in a non-assault scenario. But anyway, you know, this is what we have. We're moving it out because it's going to take us a second, right, to even get up into position to be anywhere near the territory that we want to take. And if Satis really is on the move, it's not inconceivable if they push hard enough and fast enough, like we could lose out on this throne, you know, maybe even Pangaea. So, you know, is this army like ready to go? Not really. You know, are they ever ready to go? Not really. But at some point, you do have to go. So yeah, when we're recruiting more Bakemono, like pretty much all the same kind of rating groups, like we're still constructing those. I'm expecting like fairly heavy rating losses. I think this is really going to be the first. We've seen a couple. Oh, this must be where we're doing the horror attack. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Lone scout attacking. But otherwise, like this is going to be kind of not the first test. Ooh, this is rough. Oh no, this is our assassin who is still looking for a worthy target. But yeah, we haven't really tested these groups en masse yet. So like we'll see. Next turn I think will be at least more illuminating. But regardless, we do know that Raga has fairly heavy investment in province defense and seems to recruit a lot of mundane troops. So I expect that a lot of troops to be moving out to counter raid, and our raiders will bump into stuff at various points. So like yeah, there's going to be a bunch of heavy raiding, and then once we're finished raiding Raga, we'll probably move on to raiding Gath in the not too distant future. So the more raiding groups we can recruit over here, the better. Otherwise, I don't think research has changed yet too much. More or less the same thing. Added on Thaumaturgy 7 for Charm, which is a nature spell that'll let you like take over thugs and super combatants. It's pretty useful. We'll see. This might change. More of a long-term nice to have than we immediately need it. We have started casting Ritual of the Five Gates, at least with one of our casters. Hopefully we'll be able to keep this up. I think we more or less can with our current level of blood hunting. But of course we were preparing another caster of this, and we definitely do not have the income to be casting this twice every turn. Related to that, we are doing a bunch of forging of more sanguine dowsing rods. We're going to get another group probably set up here, being led by this blood too, and yeah, a couple other blood hunters that we can use. So yeah, we definitely need to step up the blood hunting, even though it's starting to get to a better place. I'm just realizing that, yeah, you can spend blood slaves pretty quickly. Related to that, we are also just going to gamble on binding an ice devil. And that is where I think like 88 of our blood slaves are going this turn. Yeah, I don't know. People argue back and forth about whether or not the ice devils are worth it. I think, yeah, I mean, maybe. They're certainly interesting and fun to play around with. I've never, had an ice devil in a multiplayer game, so like, let's give it a shot. A lot of people use them as like heavy thugs or kind of super combatants, which we might try to do because we are a little light currently on, thug or super combatant bodies that are stronger than just our Veti goads. But they probably shine, most as like, high-level casters built into an army. That said, this is one of those chassis. I think there's like 3 or 4 Ice Devils. They're unique. Once they're summoned, they can't be summoned again until they get killed or banished. So if they're all out, this is just a big waste of resources. And it's not impossible that they're all out because our friends to the south here have pretty similar paths, and I'm sure have also been blood hunting. And this is only at blood 6, I think you need to bring in the Ice Devils. So it's actually not like incredibly high research. They certainly could have rushed blood, quite a long time ago, right? Like we delayed our blood research a good amount, and now we have it. So if Utgard just went for it, and and they have the paths for it, and like I said, they more or less do, then they could have all of the Ice Devils. So we'll see. And then speaking of Utgard, they are actually not considered a Jotun nation, which is a little confusing. Considering a good chunk of their units are prefixed with Jotun. But I guess in terms of Illwinter, the effects of it, or like the advantages of it, follow our cap-only mages, which ditched Utgard and hooked up with Vaettiheim instead. So since we have these ladies, we are the ones that benefit from Illwinter. So there is no sharing of the joys of Illwinter, which means that when we cast it, like we won't have a friendly neighbor to the south. They will be equally annoyed as everyone else. In fact, perhaps more annoyed, because I think the random attacks are more likely in cold provinces. So they are actually going to feel the effects of that most quickly. And that is also, partially what motivated trying to, bind the Ice Devil, because I was kind of saving up the blood slaves, thinking like, yeah, maybe in the not too distant future, right? Like if we have, friendly Utgard, since they're probably one of the stronger nations that is left, and it looks like they're going to gain quite a bit of territory from Raga here. They're pushing pretty hard and pretty well.
So, I was thinking like, okay, if we have another strong nation that's okay with Illwinter, and then, otherwise not too worried about any of our other neighbors, like that could be a moment to cast Illwinter. But since they're not going to like it, now it's kind of looking like, well, we're still a little ways off from Illwinter, so let's go ahead and convert the blood slaves we do have right now into some useful combat power, and then we'll worry about Illwinter, I don't know, 10 turns, 20 turns, when it feels right. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 45.